Thank you very much for joining me, Harry. Would you please give a short introduction to who you are, your background, etc.?
I'm a Jungian and attachment therapist. I specialize in Jungian psychology, which I'd say is also known as depth psychology, which goes into meaning, purpose in life, and the shadow, which is what it's really known for. And also in attachment, I'm certified to score adult attachment interviews for a thing called reflective function, which is a strong indicator of secure attachment. And I've also trained extensively in MBT, which links with attachment. And I have a book I've written, which is essentially more than a PhD thesis length on complex trauma. But of course, with being busy with seeing clients, it's been hard to edit the book. But that'll be coming out at some point. It's a lot of editing to do. And essentially, I see clients for one-on-ones. People contact me on my Instagram or my website, harryvenice.com, for one-on-ones to deal with all these sort of things, either Jungian therapy, attachment, and also trauma interrelates with all these areas.
Excellent. And that's why we're here as well. You went shortly into it, but that was going to be my first question as well. And then you can take it as where you want to go. But what is Jungian psychology?
That's a big question. So as you'll know, because you're quite adept in the area, I'd say Jungian psychology is about finding the self, finding who you really are when you strip away all the external pressures, all the societal and parental expectations or attachment issues and traumas we go through in life. And that involves going into the shadow, which is essentially a simple term for everything we don't know. It can have good and bad things, but to really find that place where we peel back what our parents put on us, what society expects, Jung would call the spirit of the times. You know, in the 80s, it's different to today. It's a different world. But there's always some sort of pressure or cultural influence, depending where you live as well. So it's just really about peeling back into those parts of ourselves. And then we might be going a bit far here, but if we get to the later stages, once we enter this part of ourselves that we integrate instead of have shame towards, we accept it. We're really dealing with alchemy, as Jung would call it, which is really the uniting of opposites. So we can hold two realities, that there's good and bad within ourselves and others. The bad part's in the shadow usually, we normally project that out. We can hold those and then we unite them in the middle, and that creates a third reality. So we hold both opposites, and that's done by having a stronger ego awareness, because the unconscious is different to our ego awareness. The ego in Jungian psychology has its own narrative going. It's usually self-protective, but we need to get into that shadow and bring the contents in. And then these opposites that we'll see in our dreams or just in therapy, make them conscious, and then we can even transform them into the third. And the final step is, and a quite overlooked part, is having a religious-like function. And he doesn't mean literal religion. It's about having meaning that goes beyond ourselves. It gives us a deeper meaning in life. And Jung believed that we kind of naturally have a religious function. And literally, religion held that for a while, but that's gone now. The religion, generally, it's not as, at least in the West, as strongly followed by the youth. So we need to find some meaning, not just the material or the job or these external things, something really deep, and that can carry us through the hardships of life.
Very good. You mentioned a couple of different things here, one of them being the unconscious. But before we get to that, I wanted to ask you, what is the psyche?
Well, if you go from a Jungian perspective, we'll focus on Jung, we'll have the ego consciousness and then the unconscious. And the easiest way I think of it If anyone's interested in reading about this in the more technical terms, there's a collected work 8. Jung has these collected works. So the 8th volume, I don't know if I'd recommend reading it. It's a bit dry. There's better places to start, but he really breaks down all of these components there, and he tries to get, I guess, scientific with it, which again he was stuck with trying to do that for his colleagues, but I think it goes beyond that. It goes to experience. But the psyche itself, you have the ego consciousness, what we're aware, and think I got my hand up here like a line. Easiest way to think of it, he mentions it in that book, is there's a threshold. And above here, we're aware of what's going on. And below, we're not aware of, we're unconscious. And Jung said in there that because contents that are too overwhelming for us, that could be traumatic or in the shadow that we don't like, could be from our parents, the narrative of our life that's painful. Many people remain in that parent narrative, right? What Jung is saying is, if that content in our psyche is too strong, too overwhelming, we'll push it down, repress it. And then, so think of the shadow below there in the unconscious, and we want to be bringing things above the threshold to the ego. And again, the opposites I mentioned, some of them are painful. They're hard to hold. We want to stay in black and white. Naturally, it's easier. But the strength of the ego above this threshold comes from holding the opposite truths, some of them painful, and then staying with them, and then we can integrate them, accept them, even transform them. And then we could get into the collective unconscious and personal. I mean, that depends on you. I don't want to talk too much. Like, you can direct me there if you want me to go to those and the archetypes.
Yes, I mean, please do touch on the collective unconscious and the archetypes as well. What are they?
Okay, well, the archetypes are probably the most misunderstood and an area of Jung's that's not even agreed. A study showed that Jungian therapists and analysts couldn't come to an agreement on what they mean. And I believe that comes down to partly that Jung says in one of his books that the more you try to narrow down an archetype, the more you lose it, because it's not that simple. The archetypes, they're from the unconscious. He will say collective unconscious, which is just, if you talk about the psyche, Jung says the thing I described earlier with this threshold, there's a personal component of the psyche, and this is where Jung gets controversial with people, who want the empirical, cold, clean, numbered, hard approach to the psyche. Jung says that there's a collective unconscious, and he really means things that he says he believes we're born with it a priori. They come inbuilt with us. These symbols, things that we'll see in dreams. So if you have a dream and, for example, a lion comes up or something really primitive, Jung will say that's a symbol. It's not personal. You're now engaging with an energy and a content that's universal and ancient, really. And he's saying we've lost touch with that. He's saying the unconscious contents, the archetypes, the very classic ones, they say there's a warrior archetype, the magician, the healer. I like some of the darker ones because I think they're practical. The devouring mother might have Medusa imagery, a vampire draining blood, that's draining your energy, and that might appear in your dream. And Jung's saying that's not coming from your personal psyche that I described. He says that's just kind of how we're built. We come with them there, and they engage us from the unconscious. And archetypes have an energy. So when we get caught, for example, in an ego inflation, we want to, you see the people, we'll use social media as an example, the go-getter in the suit, he's the man, he's in the business suit, in the car. You might see him and have certain ideas. He seems a bit inflated. He's maybe not in touch with why he's doing that. He might be engaged with an archetypal energy, a warrior. I don't know, I'll make it up. The big shot, the hero. You know, Jung's saying you want to be conscious when you're being a hero, not unconscious. And if you're not conscious, you're probably possessed by the archetype. And that's where the big influx of energy comes. Because if we go to the threshold again, the archetypes come from below, the collective below. If you're engaged in being the hero, you're not aware of it. You could do also, hear these crazy routines. People are, working 18 hours, sleeping 4. That's what he means. The archetype has gripped you. But if that man or woman did some Jungian therapy, got in touch with themselves, dealt with some childhood issues, maybe there was parental pressure or low self-esteem to boost themselves. If they engage with that process, the Jungian therapy process, they could become aware and see the archetype, see that, hey, this isn't me. Why am I doing this? And bring the shadow in. And then maybe have some self-love. And then maybe get a meaning, perhaps a religious function to their life that's conscious, where they do something that means something, rather than being driven by this external material projection of success, which can be very hollow for many people. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
very
I'm just trying to, it's a difficult concept.
that's great, and that was illuminating, and it's great that you gave some practical examples as well because it can be quite abstract, and then bringing it down to some practical ways in which it manifests makes it a lot easier to understand. So that's really helpful.
Oh, that's good to hear.
You also mentioned dreams, and I wanted to talk a little bit about dreams. Why are dreams so central in the Jungian framework?
Well, this will link again to archetypes because the archetypes appear as symbols. And we mentioned the collective unconscious. And Jung would say these really big symbols, they can be animals, buildings. I mean, cars are a common theme. Cars can be weird. They can be very futuristic. They can morph. I've had a dream where a black car and a white car morph into a third car. Now that's a big dream. That's alchemical. There's a transformation happening. The conscious will be the white, the black will be the shadow. Then you get this third structure, right? Lions, animals, beasts, or anything you can think of, crosses, churches. These are symbols that carry a lot of weight. And they appear in the dreams. That's an archetypal dream. When the symbols appear, you need to start thinking, and remember, it's coming from the unconscious, so it's coming from the shadow. The unconscious, and Jung says, the unconscious communicates what the ego above the threshold doesn't know or can't handle yet. He's not aware of. So the dream is important, to answer your question directly, because it brings the unconscious contents from the shadow to our awareness if we listen to them. See? And Jung said the more we pay attention to the unconscious and the dreams, the more it rewards us. And you can get a really big, you get really big decisions in your life. I'm talking big decisions, whether to move country, whether to change job, whether to end a relationship. If you listen to the unconscious and you've done it enough, you've got someone guiding you, a Jungian therapist, for example, because we all screw up our own dreams. That's just a fact. We sometimes get it right, but come on. That's the shadow. Come on. We've all got our own ego. But you get someone to help you, and then it's not that scary. It's still scary. But when you've done enough big decisions, listening to the dreams and the message from the unconscious, it's helping you. It's compensating or telling you something. And if you know, and you've done the work and you're doing the work, it will guide you where you need to go. And that's why it's so important. And that's why Jung, in the beginning, I thought, what's this guy going on about when I'd read Jung? This religion business. I thought, this is just some weird thing. Alchemy. Come on. Why are we talking about alchemy? And then the other one was, dreams. That's why. I mean, he wasn't a stupid guy. He knew what he was on to.
Oh, that's for sure. And I just wanted to ask the question, but I think that many people devalue dreams in our day and age, and it's sort of seen as, non-consequential. It's like just fantasy. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask that question to sort of, yeah, to clarify why it is so interesting. But I'm also curious, why do we forget dreams so readily if they are so important?
I don't know that answer, but I know it happens because I'll forget. Sometimes I'll be in the middle of my sleep and I'll have a dream and I'll think I should write it down because I know James Hollis said, get your note out and write it down, and then you can forget it. It just happens. So if you're in a really serious individuation process or a therapy process or shadow work, as it's known more now, if you're really serious, write down every detail as soon as you wake up. And you don't want to be neurotic about it. So I've relaxed with that. I did it very intensely during my Jungian analysis. It was almost, I was religious, but we just forget them. We just forget them. But the one thing I'd like to mention to tap onto my previous question, your previous question, and this should help people because it's something I noticed in myself. When you're going through a big process, like they say, the hero's journey, which is really dealing with your infantile relation to the parents, because most of us never separate mentally from our parents. It doesn't matter if we separate in financially, have families, they're in our heads. And it begins there, the individuation process. You're going to have huge dreams. And the earlier in your process, usually the bigger the dreams will be. And you might have a period where these big symbols and big dreams are not happening. Just say when you really deal with most of your parental issues. The dreams might die off. I've had a period where I didn't really have big dreams for about a year. They started coming again, and I had to listen because I took a break from it, and I did, it's just done so much. But when you need it again, when you're growing again, they're going to happen, and you can listen to them or not. But I think it's good to listen to them.
I think you're right. You also mentioned another concept there, which is individuation. Another,
Yes.
maybe one of the most central concepts in Jungian psychology. What is
Yes.
individuation?
To me, individuation is, if I was going to put it in plain English and I try answer a test, it would be living the life you're meant to live, being true to who you really are, yourself, your integrity, what you value, and sacrificing a lot of the ego, a lot of the narcissism, a lot of the material. Because again, opposites. You have the material and the self, your true self. And it's not that simple. You can't go in one or the other. The rent's going to come. You can individuate all you want, but you have to find a balance. And it's always about uniting those opposites. So finding a path you're happy with that's true to you, and you're not living for your parents, you're not living for a mother projection on a woman's not living on a father projection on a man or an attachment wound, living for you. And it's really hard to do. You have to make sacrifices. I mean, I didn't go to the institute path. That's a sacrifice I had to make. I had to follow what I wanted to do, what was real to me, what I believed in, right? And also train in other areas. That wasn't easy because I've done so much work, and that's my own, in a way, my own narcissism. We all have some that wants the title. You want the acceptance. If you're in the Jungian world, being a Jungian analyst title, that gives your ego a nice boost, But I had to really be in analysis on this for months. Like I spent months on this. So it helped me get over the mother complex, not fully because it's always there, right? But the real guts of the mother complex. That was a big wrestle for me. And remember, an institute is a symbol of the mother. So is these workplaces and these things. So when we're in a workplace or a group, this mother issues and pleasing and false self stuff, they're going to come up. So individuation is about making this conscious, separating from the parents. That's why the hero's journey begins the process. You descend down into the mother and the father, and you come back up. And it's hell. It's not nice. It's not for everyone. But when you do it, the rewards, as Jung said, you find the gold within the beast, within the shadow. So that's the beginning of it. And from there, you just keep going. You listen to the dreams. You question yourself, you check yourself. Why am I doing this? What do I believe in? You need to be strong. And one more thing is authority. Individuation, to me, is about authority. Who has your authority? I did a podcast episode on this. I mean, I was ranting like a lunatic in the forest because I was trying to inspire, especially guys, like that kind of don't have the balls. I've been that guy for many years, doing the right thing. I was just trying to roll them up. A friend saw it and said, "You look like a lunatic." I was trying to get people out of this, like to give them the authority. And James Hollis talks about this too. It's the authority to say, who holds the pen of my life? What do I want to do? And that, if we're going to talk about what Jungian psychology is about, it's sacrifice. Because to really hold your pen in life, you sacrifice a lot. It's not easy. You sacrifice certain things, like I told you I did with my journey in my training. It's really about making the shadow known and owning it and saying, I am insecure. I like approval. But you know what? Screw that. I'm going to be strong. And then you feel it. You want it. You want to introduce yourself to people and have this great exterior persona, all these boxes ticked. That's part of the Western culture, at least in my experience. But hey, do you want to have that bullshit or do you want to be happy? And that's a question I've been asking myself for many years, and I continue to.
That's a good question to ask oneself. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I get energized, a bit fired up just hearing you talk about it. So thank you, Harry.
All right. Yeah. All right. So not everyone thinks I'm a lunatic when I do that.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Then I was curious if you had any practical tips or concepts or ideas that people can grapple with that are sort of sitting at home listening to this now. What would you recommend someone do if they're interested in some of these things that you're talking about?
If they're interested in it, I would say this, and it might sound a bit self-centered, but I would go to my Instagram page, because I put there, if you read it thinking, read the caption, read the quote, think about it. I actually get the quotes from reading and rereading the original sources. They're not an accident. And a lot of them don't get many likes or attention. And that's something I struggle with, because I could post other things. I post something from the heart, it's so much work, and then I go, no one cares. But that's kind of individuation. You still do it because you feel it's right. Yeah, and it's from the soul, and you're putting the message out that's yours. I'm holding the pen there, but I could hold a pen that gets more, material results. Go there and just go through the post. If I post a reel, just listen to it. If it's something I'm reposting of an analyst, usually Robert Johnson or Edward Edinger or Jung, listen to it, read the captions, read the quote, just ponder it. There's a lot there. And then I've got a blog and a podcast. The first season's basics of Jung. I'm just sitting there on my couch talking. And then we get a bit more serious. We're in season 2 now, Book of Job. Now we're getting a bit heavy. But I would go there because you can just listen and you don't have to read. I'd highly recommend that just as a start, because I think that'll take up enough of your time anyway, doing that. And then if you're really serious, book one-on-ones with someone. I offer that. That's my main way of making a living. You book one-on-ones with someone, and I would add, work on your attachment. This is overlooked. Now, Jung kind of addresses this, but attachment came after Jung with John Bowlby. Jung does the meaning, the shadow. You'll have a happy life with Jung. But if you don't have good relationships, you're in trouble, mate. And you can get into Jung's analysis, and you can actually become, if you do it as Jung said, you're in the world. You don't individuate on it like a monk on a hill. That's called isolation, right? Dissociation. But with attachment, you can really learn to value relationships. And if you're into Jung, you're probably a deep thinker. You need to get out of the bloody head. Okay? We need to get out of our heads. Jungians are in their heads, usually, or in their feelings too much. We're usually one or the other. I was too much of a thinker. And attachment's going to get you to value relationships. And hopefully, when you do that, you'll have less trauma at the end. If you go straight to trauma processing, you can be in big trouble. Your brain's disorganized. But if you remodel your attachment, you will have internal parent figures internally within here that you can operate from securely, and you can start having good relationships. And the way you do that, and that's why I trained in the adult attachment interview, and I think it's one of the most important tools in psychology. The adult attachment interview measures attachment security and reflective function. So I work with people. I have an attachment package where we go through these things, and I actually recommend everyone to start there. And we look at your attachment, and then we can remap your attachment security with your parents in your head. That clinically, it's where it's done. It's internal. It's an internal model. So we remap that, and then we can develop you to have friendships, value going out and playing sports with someone, seeing friends. Because many of us who need therapy, we want to do that, but we can't. We're overwhelmed. We're in our heads. We're at home. We've got trauma, all sorts of stuff. And that's what I think is the most important thing. So Jungian stuff, if you're into it, attachment for everyone. Attachments for everyone, because we all have attachments.
That's for sure. I think that's really, really excellent advice, Harry. And I think we're gonna end it there. I will put the link to your website and your Instagram down below so that people can check those out. And I really appreciate you coming on, talking about Jungian psychology. It was a real treat for me. Thank you.
My pleasure. It was a treat to finally talk after seeing each other online.
All right.